Patch 5.5 is a declaration of the developer's unending resolve to continue to progress and advance Final Fantasy XIV into the future. Being honest, countless online games outright reject the idea of any significant under-the-hood code changes, engine changes, algorithm changes, or overhauls. Patch 5.5 and Final Fantasy XIV, in my opinion, stands in complete defiance of that pattern, clearly breaking the mold. There will be patch 5.5 spoilers in the content ahead as a warning, so if you are trying to avoid anything 5.5 related, watch this later. Yeah, try and not get spoiled. I totally appreciate that. But hey guys, and welcome to my channel. With patch 5.5, I was genuinely wondering what would my first video be on topic wise, and I kid you not, I really had no idea or plans. I am honestly still barely a year into being a creator, and if I'm being super honest, I really never planned my content. But what I have to say is I was immediately captivated by what I experienced myself today in-game. I mean, you can read patch notes, you can read theory, you can read speculation, but it's a huge difference between when you read something and when you actually experience it in-game. And so me being captivated prompted me to make this video on how Final Fantasy XIV is undeniably being supported and being really nourished and grown into something being supported for the long term. And as someone who has played MMORPGs and other online games for over a decade, nearly 2 decades, I can say that I've seen my fair share of games that flat out had the servers just shut off, such as WildStar or Firefall, or how dare we forget Anthem? God, Anthem. But these are games that I really did enjoy when they were launched, and honestly, seeing just what happened to these games over time really was demoralizing. It really shook my faith in online games as a whole. I mean, there was honestly a period of time where I was wondering, should I even play online games anymore? Because to me, when I get really invested in a game, I really do value the ability to like replay and just be able to like interact with players. But let's say take World of Warcraft though, where honestly my personal experiences led me to feel that a lot of core aspects of the game haven't been updated since its classic release, at least to me. You can only put so much of a shiny buffer of LVUI or other add-ons to make it look great until you realize the structure, the foundation of the house is rotten. So even if you completely revamp the top levels of the house, if the foundation is run, you can paint it any color you want. But let's get back to the point. What stood out to me personally today in patch 5.5 is the developer's unending resolve to continue to progress and advance Final Fantasy XIV into the future. And like I said before, I have seen games often cut off significant under-the-hood changes, engine changes, algorithm changes. These things are like considered to be like anathema, like just like these are the things that you do not do for like online games, and yet Final Fantasy XIV, in what I have now seen, stands boldly in defiance of it. So there will be patch 5.5 spoilers in the content ahead as a second warning, because I know that some people jump on timestamps, and fair disclosure, spoilers. So rather than explicitly go through the changes in the patch notes, which may be less interesting and honestly to me were less captivating than what I experienced in game, I want to actually speak about my personal experiences in game. So the first thing that I noticed immediately upon logging in was that the text above my character looked different. It was sharper, it was more crisp, and to be frank, it actually did throw me off a good deal to where I was questioning if the maximum 2-ish hours of sleep that I got before maintenance ended was impacting my ability to see. I'm just gonna be frank, but no, that was not the case. Even the floating text was changed, which did shock me because that was before I even updated my settings in my UI to the 4K assets in the menu, which in my opinion, in my footage, my footage is not going to be able to capture it as well as what I'm literally seeing. And why is my footage not as good? It's because I'm using like a 6-year-old or something graphics card. Like I don't have the money to update my GPU, but like when I actually look at my actual physical monitor in front of me, the difference is it's huge. The UI changes, the text changes. It is like the developers really turned it out. I'm actually surprised, and especially for something like the UI is a persistent thing throughout your entire experience in the game. That can make or break your game, and I think that the developers really did make it look so much more crisp. And here is where we start getting in spoiler territory. Alliance raid that I did today, the new one, my jaw literally dropped at multiple different fights, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Like, they worked on the engine. Yeah, I don't think they could ever do this level of transparency before. Oh, look below you. Oh.
Holy fuck!
My jaw completely dropped. There were completely reworked assets, which I guess isn't like a new thing. Like 14, the developers have very much been churning out new assets. There were completely brand new pixel filters. There were completely brand new movements, like things like the transparent floor with the skyscraper down below blowing up from literally below this transparent floor actually literally caught both me and Name It off guard, where we both screamed in horror. It was funny, and I'm just like, I'm gonna disclude that from this video for now, but it was honestly unexpected and brilliant. Well, let's take the elevator with us moving upwards, and while I realize elevators have been in the game since the days of Gaius van Baelsar blinging his armor out in gold and Praetorium, I couldn't help but be shocked by the fidelity of the assets, the length of the field that we could see, or anything else, which it was like, oh wow. Like, to me, this was just like, this is so crisp, the depth of vision is so far. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Or let's take the brand new 5.5 dungeon, the Pagelthan. Like, there were so many aspects of this dungeon that surprised me that I totally didn't expect, making me feel like maybe there was like an engine change. But like, let's start out with like the small details. Like, let's take the unique treasure chests. I was like, oh wow, I didn't expect like completely customized treasure chests. It caught me off guard. Or what about the smooth animations of Tiamat and Estinian, moving throughout the map? Like, they were actively fluidly moving around, like doing their animations. And while I realized like that's an animation thing, I'm like, this is really fluid. This is really working together. It didn't feel. It didn't feel like, if you go to like the Stormblood dungeon, which I also think was really good, but like the capstone dungeon of Stormblood, it's like the animation pathing was a little bit more obvious. It didn't feel as dynamic. It just felt much more smooth at the transitions. Or what I think what actually, this is actually what definitely blew me away, was we got to the end of the dungeon, and across this massive, ridiculous expanse of a field with this incredible sun effects, like the lighting. Like, the lighting in Final Fantasy XIV has always been good, but I actually remember that I had to take a pause when I saw this massive expanse of a field. It was breathtaking to the point where, honestly, I used to think that the Azim Steep is incredible, and for an MMO, it absolutely is. Like, this absolutely blew it out of the water, especially when we were grabbed and just taken over this field. I was like, I think like there must have been like an engine change or something. Like, this is crazy. Or another thing that's making me think like, hey, like something's way different about the animations or like the engine is like the book, the Byakko book, with like the ink that's swirling around. Like, that is so, oh, that is so crisp, that is so detailed. I was like, this is really freaking incredible. And like, take even the Hades weapon, same thing. And it's just like, you can even compare, like the Savory weapon was breathtaking because you had like this like filter over like the animation, but now you are seeing like even more wild things being produced, and I'm like, this is different. Or another example that comes to mind is me buying the brand new TV items. And I'm gonna be blunt, I'm still in complete shock that they are actually adding some of these. It's like, because I've been doing housing for literally so many years now, and seeing these extremely large animated TVs with animations like baked into them, which are also, for the record, fully floatable. I actually tried. I think that it's just so epic. I'm honestly surprised that we're getting so many unique items like this. Like, I take the factory set, which is something that I am using a whole lot in the Free Company House. I might have literally bought up all the raw materials to like turn into the different ores and stuff so that I could actually like make it, but I love it. I think that it's one of the coolest looks because it's like a more transparent layout. Like you can see the depths. Like one of the things I'm going for my house is like this art gallery at the bottom, and then being able to look at that art gallery from almost any angle in the house. Like it's just, this was never something that I would have imagined would have been possible from the days of my small house struggling to try and get a loft set up. And because we didn't have a loft item, like we had to definitely try like to mix and match things. Like, long story short, this is just very crazy to me, and I'm glad that a lot of people will not know the pain that we went through. Well, let's talk a little bit more under the hood. So these are things that you will not see as a feature to a player, but they are things that are going to impact you as a player. Like collision detection algorithms were reworked, which to me is absolutely huge, since collision detection has clearly been a part of the game since the days of Eld. Yet here we are going into 6.0 expansion almost a decade after, with collision detection algorithms being revamped. Or what about under the hood loading times? One of the hardest things, in my opinion, at least in my experience. Like I'm not going to claim that I know how hard it was for them to do it, but in my experience doing loading stuff, it's really hard to make loading times quicker in a superficial way. Usually, in my experience, to make loading times or download times or upload faster requires that you do a change to some fundamental deep set of algorithms, such as maybe you're just compressing things differently, maybe you're just unpacking them differently. But it can involve, honestly, an insanely large amount of bugs and broken features and regressions in the system, in my experience at least, and yet here we are. Not to mention, we aren't even talking about the work done to successfully beta Final Fantasy XIV for the PlayStation 5, which includes changes all the way from resolutions, new trophies, to 3D audio compatibility, the vibration controller things, and the load times, obviously, which supporting the new PlayStation platform to me speaks volumes at how the developers intend to keep Final Fantasy XIV in circulation even for the new generation of consoles. So yeah, in summary and closing, above any super specific piece of content, whether it be Alliance Raids, whether it be Extremes, whether it be the Flying Mechanical Dragon, I can genuinely truly say that patch 5.5, experiencing it in-game, blew me away from the raw, unabated dedication the developers have towards the long-term health and prosperity of Final Fantasy XIV. I am actually genuinely left nothing short of very optimistic for Endwalker and future expansions past that. I'm going to be quite frank here, the younger me that played during the 1.0 days of Eld, I know, nightmare, but I saw the servers close, and after the Calamity, I'm going to be honest, younger me that hadn't seen the progression from 1.0 to Realm Reborn, seeing more things in Heaven's Ward, more in Stormblood, more just, I would not have in 1.0 made the connection that we'd be here where we are now. And how that is just my thoughts, and I'm really genuinely curious how everyone else feels about it. To me though, I have been let down and left in the dirt by so many games that I'm completely in awe at the dedication the 14 developers have. So let me know what you think in the comment section. I'm genuinely curious. And yeah, that's all for this video. Take care and stay safe, everyone.